Letters from the Old Postmaster, a gentle story of memory, connection, and the words we never send. Before Your Dream. Written by Fedor Alphenaar. Narrated by Peter McGiffin. Letters from the Old Postmaster. Evening light in the attic. The cottage settled into its evening rhythm as the last threads of sunlight stretched through the western windows, casting everything in honey and amber. Thomas Hartwell moved slowly through the familiar rooms of his retirement, past the kitchen where his supper dishes still dried beside the window, past the sitting room where his reading chair waited with a book spine down on its arm toward the narrow door that led to the attic stairs. The wooden steps creaked their gentle protest, each one a note in a song he had learned over 37 years of living in this house. The sound was comforting now, like the tick of an old clock or the whisper of wind through the eaves. Above him, the attic waited in its perpetual twilight, filled with the accumulated breath of decades. Dust motes danced in the slanted beams that found their way through the small dormer window, each particle caught in its own lazy waltz with the air. The space smelled of dry wood and lavender sachets, of old paper and the faint sweetness of potpourri his late wife had scattered in corners years ago. Somewhere beneath it all was the distinctive scent of aged ink, that particular fragrance of words waiting patiently to be discovered. Thomas had come up here looking for nothing in particular, the way retired men do on quiet evenings when the television holds no appeal and the garden has been tended. He moved carefully between the stored remnants of a working life, ledgers from his years as postmaster, boxes of holiday decorations that had once filled the house with warmth, a trunk of linens that still held the ghost of Margaret's touch. It was behind a stack of old postal directories that he found it, a wooden box, unremarkable except for the care with which it had been placed. The wood was weathered to a soft grey, and postal twine had been wound around it with the particular knots he recognized from decades of handling packages. The twine had aged from brown to amber, and its edges were frayed like old friendship. He lifted the box carefully, surprised by its weight. Not heavy exactly, but substantial, as if it contained more than whatever lay inside. The wood was smooth under his fingers, worn by handling, and when he held it close, he caught the scent of old paper, ink, and something else. Hope, perhaps, or longing. The kind of fragrance that clings to letters held too long before being sent. The attic seemed to hold its breath as he turned the box over in his hands. On the bottom, in faded pencil, someone had written "Undelivered, 1962 to 1989. His own handwriting, though he had no memory of making the notation. The years struck him as curious. They spanned much of his career, from his early days learning the routes and rhythms of the postal service to well into his tenure as the town's postmaster. A floorboard settled somewhere in the cottage below, and the sound reminded him of evening tea, of the chair by the fire that waited for him, of the simple rituals that had shaped his days since retirement. He took the box under his arm and made his way back down the stairs, each step carrying him deeper into the warmth of the cottage, deeper into the approaching night, deeper into whatever story this forgotten box might tell. The sitting room welcomed him with its familiar embrace. The worn carpet, the lamplight that seemed to gather in pools around his chair, the gentle tick of the mantel clock that had measured out so many quiet evenings. He set the box on the small table beside his chair and went to put the kettle on, understanding somehow that whatever lay inside deserved the ceremony of proper tea, the kind of unhurried attention that only comes when the day has settled into evening and time moves like honey through warm air.